There aren't that many Dragoons in Final Fantasy, so you might think that it's easy to pick out the best one. But you'd be wrong. Dragoons are generally characterized by their ability to wield spears and jump. However, it's the unusual side abilities that have rocketed one Lancer in particular to the top spot. Before we dig into the best Dragoon though, let's talk about Dragoon number 5, the Dragoon from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And this Dragoon is one of the more versatile Dragoons out there. Most Dragoons specialize in jumping, but jump is probably one of the least special parts of this guy's kit. It has nice range, allowing you to extend physical attack damage, and it can't be evaded. But other Dragoons just jump better, and I'll get into that in a bit. What is unique about this class, though, is that it gets a bunch of cool elemental breaths. It can deal fire, ice, and lightning damage in a cone shape, which honestly just makes me want ice cream. And this class gets the Worm Tamer ability, which I kind of love. They basically just cosplay the dragon's spouse, and they're angry that the dragon hasn't scooped the cat litter or washed a single dish all week, and they nag it until it leaves. I think I need couples therapy. But there's one more ability that truly launches this pal with a pole into the top 5. Dragonheart. If you have Dragonheart equipped and you take a physical attack, the auto life ability activates. So the next time your Dragoon dies, they're automatically revived. And this effect is incredibly powerful. But there's a problem. There's actually a more powerful version of this ability that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And the fact that this ability only activates in response to a physical attack makes it inherently unreliable. Magic attacks, skills, and other forms of damage will not trigger this ability. And beyond that, there are more useful Dragoons out there, like the number 4 Dragoon on this list, Final Fantasy VI's Mog. Now, it's kind of hard to box the characters from Final Fantasy VI into a class since everyone can do just about everything. But there are 2 characters in this game who can jump. And since I already talked about Edgar in my video about the best warrior in Final Fantasy, linked in the Discridly-Do, we're gonna let Mog have the spotlight this time. And first, while it's not related to being a Dragoon, Mog is also Final Fantasy VI's Dancer, or Geomancer, or both. It's a little confusing, honestly. Anyway, if his dance succeeds, Mog enters a berserk-like state. You can't control him, and he'll choose one of 4 abilities to be used based on the dance that you chose. Some of these abilities heal, some deal instant death, and some just deal damage. And because they don't use any MP, they can be quite useful. But more to the point, Mog is also one of 2 characters who can equip spears, as well as the Dragoon boots, allowing him to jump. And jump in this game is actually quite powerful, because Mog can also use the Dragon Horn, which allows him to perform multiple jump attacks whenever he descends from the heavens, decimating enemies. And during his jump, he's completely invulnerable. This allows him to dodge some devastating attacks and potentially stay alive in the face of massive danger. And in case I forgot to mention it, equipping a spear causes jump attacks to deal triple damage, as opposed to using jump with any other kind of weapon, which does just double. But there's one more thing, the Imp Partisan. Let me explain. The Imp status effect in Final Fantasy VI is extremely debilitating. In Imp form, all commands except attack, item, and the Imp spell are disabled. And normally, that would be impressively bad. But being an imp also has one more effect. It allows you to use the Impartisan, which is an incredibly powerful spear. Now that wouldn't mean much if Mog could only use regular attacks. But if Mog is an imp, equips the Impartisan, and equips the Dragoon boots and the Dragon Horn, his jumps become completely overtuned. He can just bounce on enemies all day with his pulsating polearm, devastating them with his strength. And yes, this is probably not the best way to use Mog, but it is a quick way to gain tremendous utility out of jumps. But what's funny is that despite this powerful gimmick, our number 3 Dragoon is even more powerful, the Dragoon from Final Fantasy Tactics. And given that we've already talked about the Dragoon from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, I don't have a ton to add. This Dragoon is actually much simpler than that one. It has jump, and unlike the Advanced Dragoon, it makes this version completely invulnerable during the time of the jump. And this Dragoon also has Ignore Elevation, which I guess is just another form of jumping. Yeah, and that's not that broken, I guess. Tantacles. What? Come on. Okay. The real deal is that this Dragoon also has Dragon Heart, just like the Advanced Dragoon. I did say we would circle back to it, and here we are. But this Dragoon can literally only do two things. How is it more powerful than the Advanced Dragoon? What gives? Well, Dragon Heart in this game is exactly the same as it is in Tactics Advance, with one exception. It activates whenever the Dragoon takes damage. Any type of damage. That means that if an enemy bops, burns, beats down, bashes, or bangs your Dragoon, it will automatically gain the auto life status, causing automatic revival after death. But there is one little problem. The activation rate of the skill, because it's a reaction ability, depends on the character's Brave stat. Every point of Brave increases the activation rate by 1%. Now, I don't think that's a huge deal because first, there are ways to raise your Brave permanently, though it does take a while. Also, assuming your HP is high enough to survive a few hits, let's say you have like 70 Brave, if you take 3 hits, there's a 30% chance of this skill not activating after each hit, which means that there's a 2.7% chance of this skill not activating after 3 hits. Yes, I'm a math person, I miss calculus, and I really miss calculating the volume of a thick, long, complete chance of evasion, 97.3%. So basically, unless you're really unlucky, your Dragoon is not going to die. And honestly, you could just have a weak unit bop him a few times to get that status up. But you might be thinking, rats, how can anything be more powerful than that? Well, rats. I'm sorry, what I mean is one rat in particular. Final Fantasy IX's Freya. She is Dragoon number 2. Freya, unlike the Tactics Dragoon, can't auto-revive herself, but fortunately, she doesn't really need to, because what she specializes in is killing. And the first tool she can do that with, as you might expect, is her jump. Freya is a physical attacker, and as in many Final Fantasy games, her spear can have elements and inflict status effects. But this is a double-edged sword, or should I say a double-edged spear. You get the point.
Stop it. Get some help.
Because if an enemy absorbs the element of her spear attack, she can't damage them, unless she jumps. Jump removes the element from her weapon and deals 50% extra damage compared to her normal attack. And even better, it can do normal damage from the back row, allowing Freya to take half physical damage from all enemies. She also eventually gets the high jump ability, which increases her jump damage to double instead. But that's not all her jump can do. 3 times in Final Fantasy IX, the team has to fight General Beatrix, who is quite powerful. And in these battles, there are 2 ways to win. First, you can just deal damage to General Beatrix, defeating her and ending the battle. Or second, you can just wait for 10 of Beatrix's turns to pass. And then, just as if you beat her with damage, the battle will end. But Freya's jump completely messes with her. If Freya is the only character left alive and jumps, Beatrix doesn't know what to do. So rather than just waiting and taking her turns later like a reasonable AI would, she just skips them. And Freya's trance also has a crazy interaction with this mechanic. If Freya jumps while she's in trance, she doesn't just come down after her jump timer ends. She stays up in the air and tosses spears every turn until her trance counter is depleted. This means it's possible that you might only have to take 1 hit from Beatrix before you can jump, skip all of her turns, and force her to end the battle. And this mechanic allowed me to beat Final Fantasy IX with only Freya, a video that I will link in the Discridly-Do. And by the way, Beatrix is not the only enemy who's messed up by Freya's jumps. Near the end of the game, Tiamat loves to use Absorb Strength to sap your character's strength, lowering their damage and raising their own. But this enemy, just like Beatrix, skips turns if jumping Freya is the only character left on the field. And this means you can just skip his more dangerous attacks. Again, I was able to use this tech in that same video. And another one. Malyrus has a final attack that is very powerful and potentially a game ender. But by using Freya's jump at the end of the battle, particularly if Freya is the only available character, Malyrus will just not be able to cast this spell. And one more! Trance Kuja, the second to last boss, will simply attack himself if Freya jumps and no one else is alive. And maybe you think all of that is enough to get Freya her number 2 spot, but you ain't seen nothing yet, because Freya also gains access to the Dragon Crest ability. After killing 100 dragons, this ability allows Freya to deal 9,999 damage every single time it's used. No no questions asked. It costs very little MP and has no condition for activation and no downside beyond those dragon kills. And this skill was instrumental to helping me beat Final Fantasy IX at level 1. Discreetly, dude. Because I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you can kill things fast, your defenses do not matter. Which, funny enough, explains our number 1 Dragoon, whom I will talk about after we discuss some Poke Pals who did not make the cut. The Dragoon from Final Fantasy Tactics A2, like the Advanced Dragoon, also has a bunch of elemental breaths, and it also has Dragonheart. However, Dragonheart for this guy only activates once per battle. Still useful, but not quite as special as the alternatives. And Kimahri from Final Fantasy X is technically a Dragoon as well as the Sphere Grid's lost child. Jump is a part of his blue magic limit break, but it's his first one, and the rest of his blue magics are far more useful. I discussed those in the Best Blue Mage video in more detail, but ultimately he's just not nearly as useful as the other characters in the game. Kain in Final Fantasy IV is actually a great unit with some great use cases. His jump attack can disable one particularly powerful boss. However, he doesn't have much going for him beyond that, and he also is a really bad wingman, which costs him a ton of points. But that brings us to the best Dragoon, a Dragoon who is definitely subscribed to this YouTube channel. Yeah, that's shameless. Please subscribe. It helps the channel a lot, actually. I would really appreciate it. And also, if you have some extra cash lying around and want to jump on my videos early, do me a favor and become one of the Tantacles. I sort of already told you what happens if you do. You get early access to my videos, but more importantly, you help pay for the editing of these videos. It is expensive to make YouTube videos, and I spend a lot of time, irrespective of editing, putting these together. I'm like constantly creating little listicles in my head, and then I have to get them on paper and then talk about Final Fantasy. I'm a little bit hoarse, so let's just move on with the rest of the video. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. Anyway, the number 1 Dragoon is Final Fantasy VII's Cid. When the player initially meets Cid, he's kind of just a chain-smoking bastard. He's not particularly friendly, but he does let you borrow his plane, which you subsequently convert to a boat. And in case you're not aware of it, don't buy a boat. Turn a plane into a boat instead, although that's sort of a downgrade, but hey, we're getting away from the point a little bit, aren't we? In battle, Cid has some cool qualities. Like everyone else, he can use materia, do everything, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about the things that make him special. His limit. He actually has some really cool spears. He has one spear that... Just kidding, I don't care. His limit breaks. His level 1 and 2 limit breaks are honestly nothing special, but once he has access to his level 3 limit break, things get good. His first, Dragon Dive, deals damage 7 times, overall dealing around 9 times his normal attack damage, and Big Brawl does about the same, albeit in a slightly different distribution. But Cid's level 4 special High Wind does one better. It hits 18 times, dealing about 3/4 of Cid's... Oh, I bit my tongue. It hits about 18 times, dealing about 3/4 of Cid's normal attack damage. And while this might seem not that great compared to his other attacks, this attack has the potential to do the highest damage in the entire game with very little investment. Yes, more than Cloud's Omni Slash, since that only hits 15 times. And sure, if you're not hitting the damage cap, Omni Slash will probably do more. But fortunately, we're not comparing Cid to Cloud in this video. We're comparing him to the other Dragoons, and he can kill things faster than any other Dragoon in all of this series. Follow me on social media. I'm flashing some links on the screen right now, and click this link to watch all of these comparative videos. Or click here to watch me beat Final Fantasy IX with only Freya. Bye.